Welcome again to Indie Attack today during our horror week. I am Kelson.
I am Woody.
And today we are playing a pretty spooky game called The Train, and this is out of Russia by Sergei Noskov, who I believe is kind of well known as an indie developer. I kind of noticed when checking out stuff about this game. And The Train is a sort of stealthy experience where you're moving through a train that's sort of in this post-apocalyptic sort of dilapidated nightmare.
Almost Silent Hill like nightmare zone.
Yeah, and like The Shining.
Really, Silent Hill on a train is kind of a good way to think of this game.
Yeah, actually, yeah, and honestly, like if you look outside the windows of the train, it is very misty out there, so it's very appropriate, and everything is just rusted, corroded, and gross. And sort of the narrative thrust of the train then becomes this flashing between, whoever your character is being in his life beforehand and sort of interacting with the world, and then usually flashing back to the train, and somehow there will be a correlation of some sort, and spirits will sort of begin to awaken as you move down the train, and you'll flash back and forth between your memories and sort of have to solve these little puzzles, basically, of how do you get past these little kids who are running around, or, spectral kids, or what have you.
Yeah, it's this kind of funky, your main sort of puzzle-solving mechanic is you kind of collect items and stuff, and it's a little bit point-and-click adventure-y. Kind of in that way.
It really is.
And then you also have a button that closes your eyes.
Yes. Oh, yes. Which is, I don't know. It really excited me that was a mechanic in the game from the word go, just because it's one of those visceral
things. It's such
a
good horror concept.
Yes.
Of like you can do a lot of cool stuff with that.
Yeah, and it's like in real life, if you try to walk with your eyes closed, I've actually tried this mental experiment before. Like after 10 steps or so, you start to feel really weird and disoriented. And this game I think tries to conjure that to some extent, because it is very vulnerable feeling. This isn't a game where you have a gun.
Yeah. Now, if there is a negative to this game,
sure, it
is that this game is Russian.
It is,
and while there is an English mode in this game, it's shaky.
Yeah, it's
Google Translate.
Yeah,
kind of seem like quality.
Indeed, yeah. There wasn't. It seems like it must have just been thrown into some sort of text converter, and didn't. There wasn't a lot of thoughtfulness put into that because there's like missives, little journal entries, and pieces of paper you'll find, and it's like just sort of some key words about that make things sound bad. So you get the idea.
We played this both in the same room and not in the same room. The first time we played this, we did not know there was an English option, and we just played the whole thing in Russian.
Yeah.
And then we played it in English. Playing it in Russian really wasn't that much more unclear than playing it in English.
Completely agreed.
It was about the same level.
Right. If anything, I felt like I liked it more in Russian just because it was more, I could be more immersed and not read this like gobbledygook, like gibberish, But there are some cool twists and turns in the game.
And it's kind of a cool natural setup. It's almost like a level-based setup for how the train cars work and stuff.
Yeah.
There's, the actual puzzles I don't think are that complex, and a lot of them are just backtracking. And,
no, they're not.
Okay, now you get to a point, and now you have to go back and find a lock. Or now you have to go find something to break a lock.
Yeah, and I'll say that I think that this game... my critique would be that it has a lot going for it as far as visually, for a free game, it looks really good, and it has, like, genuinely developed concepts and gameplay ideas, but it's just because in this, the double-edged sword of that is that because it's a bigger indie game, there are a lot of wonky bits here, like, throughout. So I found each puzzle, I don't know, there was always some little hiccup that I felt like wasn't necessarily my fault. It was just like the game plays a little funky,
Yeah.
and easy to solve, but like the one where you hold a book up to the door to get through, for whatever reason I had to just restart the game because it just wasn't going to let me do that, and then I loaded it and then did it right away, and it was like, okay, that was just a weird glitch. So there's just some mechanical issues I found, but that being said,
it's still a pretty atmospheric game,
Yeah.
And I think it's an impressive effort for one person putting this out.
Absolutely, yeah. That's 100%. I agree. It's the
it's kind of something, and it's also pretty lengthy too.
Yeah, there's a good hour and an hour.
This is not a short game. Neither of us beat this. I think. Did you beat this?
No, I got close to the end, but I haven't finished it yet. But I will say I do want to finish. I want to see where we end up. So, but I'm about.
Yeah, so like you can definitely put some time in it. So I think this is the kind of thing where if the atmosphere looks inviting, I would recommend it.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't think it's something I am probably going to come back and play, but yeah, the atmosphere I can definitely see winning some people over.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's worth checking out. And if you don't like it within the first few levels, then it's going to be more of the same. But there are some pretty cool, spooky moments that happen with like floating mannequin things and
yeah, mannequins are such a good horror thing.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, The Train, check it out if you dare.